Well, as most of you know, I have actually retired. I wouldn't say 100%, but I have handed over the running of the fund to another team, and they are in charge, and I don't influence them at all. I gave myself a little loophole that I can take positions if I really have some firm convictions, because it just helps me to focus my mind a little bit. But on the whole, I am spending my time developing my philosophy of imperfect understanding and reorganizing the foundation to make it actually to survive me. You saw the little blurb there, and I think it captured the spirit of the foundation very well. It's all over the place, and it does need a little bit of sorting out in order to make it more effective. We are in a new phase in the foundation because since I'm no longer in the money-making business, we now have, let's say, hard monetary, budgetary constraints. In other words, we are no longer growing. And that, I think, is a very healthy principle. So we want to make the foundation work more effectively. So actually, we are expanding our activities. But tonight, I think, to start off the evening, I'll give you my view of the world where we stand today, because I think that's the subject that interests you. I mean, we are, of course, in the aftermath of the crash of 2008, when the financial markets did, in fact, collapse. And the authorities prevented it from seizing up by substituting the credit of the state for the financial credit that collapsed. And that involved a delicate two-phase maneuver where you have to actually inject more money first, and then eventually, when the markets start functioning again, withdraw the additional funding. So it's like when a car is skidding, first you have to turn the wheel in the same direction, and then when you have regained control, then you correct the direction of the car. And we are still in the first phase of that maneuver, and still the big question is quantitative easing is in fact working, and is preventing or has prevented the world from slipping into a depression similar to the 1930s. But what's the exit from this? And that's still to come. But then you had the euro crisis, which is, in my opinion, a direct consequence of the crash of 2008, because when you substituted the credit, the sovereign credit for financial credit, then the fundamental flaw in the euro became apparent, namely that the government debt of the member countries was issued in a foreign currency, the euro. They did not actually control the currency in which their government bonds were denominated. And that was actually ignored by the authorities before. They treated government bonds as riskless assets, and they turned out to be more risky than anything else. And that was the origin of the euro crisis. And that, I think, is still also not solved. I spent most of my time thinking about and dealing with the euro crisis in the last year because I consider that the most pressing, immediate issue. And last spring, I said the next 3 months are going to determine the shape of the future. And in fact, that is what happened, because after the failure of the June summit, there was a moment when the credit risk went through the roof, and we were on the verge of a meltdown. And at that moment, Germany, or Chancellor Merkel, in fact did what she had to do to save the euro, and backed Draghi over the president of the Bundesbank, and then Draghi saved the situation. So the euro is now here to stay, and the markets are reassured. The immediate crisis is over, but I think the complacency or optimism is a little bit premature, because the fundamental imbalances have not been resolved. They've been papered over. Germany did the minimum that was necessary to save the euro. And actually, since it has worked, already the concessions that Germany made in agreeing on a banking union and other things are being whittled down. So the outcome is what I was afraid of, which is a eurozone divided into creditors and debtors, with the creditors in charge, and unfortunately advocating a policy of austerity, which is just simply counterproductive, because you can't reduce excessive debt by reducing the GNP, so because it's a ratio. So it's the wrong policy at this time, and it's actually hurting the debtor countries more than Germany, but it is pushing the entire eurozone into a recession. And that will aggravate the political tensions. So the financial solution is actually the wrong, is politically unacceptable. In fact, in the long run, I think intolerable. So you have the euro, what I was afraid of, is in danger of destroying the European Union. That's not a danger that necessarily is going to happen in the next year or two. The next year or two are still going to be very, very tense because of the economic decline. But if we go through that period, as most likely we will, because Germany will always do the minimum to preserve the euro, then you have a permanent system where Europe is divided into center and periphery, with the center deciding policy, or basically controlling policy, and the periphery reduced to a permanently inferior and subordinate situation. It's in a way, there's a parallel with the global financial system that prevailed after the Second World War, with the United States being the center and with the developed world controlling the financial system, and the developing world being subjected to very sharp discipline. But when the system was endangered, then always the authorities took care to preserve the system at the cost of inflicting a very heavy penalty on the periphery. So I see a considerable similarity to the global banking crisis that broke out in 1982, and that resulted in a lost decade in Latin America. We are in a similar situation now, with a lost decade affecting Europe, and particularly the debtor countries in Europe. So that's, I think, is a very unfortunate outcome. I proposed all kinds of ways to try to avoid it. You might be aware of my proposal, Germany lead or leave, which actually was remarkably, very interestingly, quite seriously considered and in a way welcomed by the Bundesbank and the people who were supporting the Bundesbank, but was totally unacceptable to my friends, the pro-Europeans, who just couldn't imagine a euro without Germany, although it could work very well, and I still believe it would be a better solution, but it's not now going to happen. And I think that my friends, the pro-Europeans, are making a big mistake, confusing the euro with the European Union. And I think the European Union is much more important than the euro. But that's the situation today. And as a foundation, since I am a believer in the European Union as an open society, and I think that this division of Europe into creditors and debtors, and with the debtors in a subordinate position, is contrary to the spirit in which the European Union was created, because it was then a voluntary association of equal states, and now it's almost compulsory, or an association which you can't escape, but it is not in this spirit of equality at all. So there's two problems with Europe, or with this outcome. One is the political problem that the creditors, particularly Germany, are in charge, and effectively nothing can be proposed on the European level without first checking with Germany whether it's acceptable. So that's politically, I think, not a desirable situation. But the other problem is that the policy advocated by Germany, namely austerity, is just simply the wrong policy. Now, I think it will become increasingly evident that it's the wrong policy. And so there could be a change a change on the part of Europe. But I see actually now, when I come to the let's say, financial market implications of this development, I think quite a turbulent time ahead for 2013. And the turbulence will be in the first place in the exchange rates. And secondly, if that doesn't disturb the recovery, then in interest rates, and thirdly, there could be also some political turbulence. In the case of the exchange rates, Europe is now an outlier. It's the only major central bank that is not engaging in quantitative easing. Japan had been very conservative, similar to the Central Bank of Japan, was similar to the, let's say, the Bundesbank interpretation of how financial markets should be handled. And now it has come under political attack. The government, the new government of Japan, gained an absolute majority in the lower house on a platform of quantitative easing. And it is already has moved the currency by 15% or so. And I think this move is a real one. It's different from the previous attempts where it was kind of a pretense, but no real willingness to follow through. The Abe government needs to succeed and actually get the economy going within 6 months, in order, because it has the upper house elections coming up in September, and it needs to win that election. So I think this move is a real one, and it will, at the same time, the euro is likely to strengthen because of the conservative management, the last remaining bastion of what might be called sound money. And so the divergence between the Japanese yen and the euro is going to be aggravated. And that will have a negative effect on Germany's performance, because Germany is very competitive with Japan in the global markets. And so the recession in Europe may also affect Germany. And that's, I think, is going to create tensions. You already had Weidmann criticize the new developments in Japan. It's only an indication of what I think is in store. Then, if this is kept under control, and then I think the United States currently has a pretty good underlying dynamics, which has also been, you had the fiscal cliff. If that issue is resolved and the US economy actually picks up, then I think interest rates are liable to rise because of the fear that the second phase of the maneuver might not be successfully carried out. And then you would have a stop-go similar to what you had in the 70s, but I think it is much preferable to no go at all. So I think quantitative easing is actually the right policy at the present time. And if you actually combine fiscal stimulus with the central bank engaging in quantitative easing, effectively buying the bonds that are being issued, the debt actually, the net debt of the country is not increased. But as the economy accelerates, the debt ratio actually falls. So it is the only way out. You can only grow your way out of excessive debt. You can't shrink your way out of it. So I think this is now pretty well accepted by central banks globally, except for the ECB. However, as the economy declines, you may find that the ECB also sees it that way. And then you will have a very interesting situation because then Germany would be definitely overruled on that issue as well. And then the question is whether Germany actually wants to put up with that or not. And then you get into the political tensions of the situation. So that's my sort of short-term prediction. Now, for the medium term or maybe the longer term, the most important thing actually is what happens in China, because China has to change its growth model. It's not something that it has to do immediately. It could carry on for a few more years this way, but it cannot go on much longer. And that means shifting from export and infrastructure investment led growth to domestic and consumption led growth. And that will be a fundamental change, not only of the growth model, but also of the political model.